everyone. For our group discussion, we chose the second topic, which is about Chinese identity and civilization. There are three core questions that we'll be focusing on extensively today. The first question is about the possible determinants of whether Chinese identity has strengthened or declined in the recent years. The second question delves into the causes to why there's a decline in Chinese identity among the Chinese population. The third question focuses on whether there's a Chinese civilization or a civilization with Chinese characteristics. For the first question, we believe that there are several possible determinants to why there's a strong decline in Chinese identity, particularly among Hong Kong people and Chinese. These possible determinants include economy transformation, historical events that took place, such as defeat in Opium War and May 4th cultural movement, and globalization as well, such as transparency in media presses these days, have all gradually widened the gap and highlighted the distinctions between non-Chinese mainlanders and Chinese mainlanders. Particularly among Hong Kong people, we are able to witness a strong decline in Chinese identity among this population group. Hong Kong residents view their society as freer and more developed than China. They also treasure Hong Kong's rule of law with an independent judiciary which stood in contrast with a far more arbitrary system of governance on the mainland. The return of Hong Kong to Chinese sovereignty in 1997 did not reverse these trends toward a distinctive local identity. According to Figure 1, in June 2018, as we can see over here, more than 20 years after the handover to Beijing, a survey found that 67.7% saw themselves as having primarily a Hong Kong identity, either a Hong Konger in China, which that made up of 26.8%, or simply a Hong Konger, 40.7%. This was an increase from 59.7% in 1997. More alarmingly, despite years of patriotic education, 96.4% of people under 29 years old identify themselves as having primarily a Hong Kong identity. Only 3.6% of the young people identify themselves as primarily Chinese, a stark contrast to the 31.6% recorded in 1997. Looking at Figure 2, we could interpret those who lack confidence in the system have risen from 18.1% to 49%, from 18% over here to 49%. The degree of confidence is primarily dependent on whether people believe Hong Kong enjoys autonomy, free of Beijing's interference, and irrespective of changes in Chinese Communist Party (CCP) leadership. Nonetheless, no matter which measure of identity is examined, it is unmistakable and certain that there's a consolidating trend that Hong Kong identity among the younger generation has strengthened over the years. Despite the decline in Chinese identity among non-Chinese mainlanders, Chinese mainlanders, especially the younger generations, have developed a stronger Chinese identity over the years. This could also be applied to the young Chinese Canadians who have generated a strong sense of Chinese identity due to cultural transmission from their family members and their parents' desire that they want their kids to be indoctrinated with their cultural roots and cultural background knowledge. Many bicultural individuals may have developed their own identity integration as well, which this refers to the perception that their two cultural identities are compatible. In this context, meaning they resonated with both their Chinese side and Canadian side, and both sides work cohesively together without clashing and having cultural clashes.
In question, we will elaborate on the possible determinants to why there's a strong decline in Chinese identity among the Taiwanese population. So first, to give a brief overview of Taiwanese demographic characteristics. So in terms of the population compositions, 98% of the population is Chinese. Among those 98%, we can see 70% of them are from Fujian, and 15% of them are Hakka from Guangdong, and 90% of them are mainlanders, and the rest of two are Aborigines. So after our research, we believe there are four potential factors that may have contributed to the decline of Chinese identity among Taiwanese. These factors are economic, education curriculum, shift in political regime, and historical events. So first, for the economic aspect, Taiwan used to be the one that held the largest foreign reserve in the world for over $70 billion in 1990, surpassing Japan, the United States, and Germany. And during the 1960s, they were able to provide low-wage labor and high productivity, which they in return gained support for the US and developed international trade. The nationalist government of Taiwan at that time had made a highly coordinated and strategic efforts to make Taiwan a valued partner in many joint ventures in a number of key states in North America. Taiwanese merchants, predominantly the ones that owned small and medium industries, were noticeable worldwide. The combination of government's leadership, entrepreneurial ingenuity, and a strong work ethic has made Taiwan an assiduous investor and an innovator in international trade. As a result, the perceptual gap between Taiwan and China has been excessively wide. These so-called two countries had vastly different economic structures, political systems, social conditions, and cultural orientations. Let's move to the education curriculum, which also play a crucial role in shaping the formation of identity among the younger generations, which this point was proven by the KMT political leader Chiang Kai-shek. Actively found ways to embed their political ideologies into the school curriculum to better control and manipulate the younger generations, which serve as their forms of political propaganda. So we could see there we divide into the curriculum into two types, which are the sensations and indigenization. So for the first one, after 1945, the Chinese nationalist government forced the students, both the Chinese migrants and aborigines in Taiwan, to only study Mandarin and indoctrinate them with mainstream cultural values of Confucianism. And when KMT was in control, not only did they implement the policy of conversing in Mandarin only, they also changed the curriculum to a so-called anti-communist education, which was intended to vanish any positive image of Chinese central government, which is CCP party. And in regard to the political regime, it was one of the most influential factors that contribute to the decline of Chinese identity among Taiwanese, because that the so-called Taiwanese identity was largely influenced by the political leaders. For example, we specific focus on the previous president of Taiwan, which is Li Denghui and Chen Shui-bian. The unequal relationship between the mainlanders and Taiwanese began to shift in the 1990s, which led to the rise of the new political party, which is the Democratic Progressive Party. And many of the political leaders were all part of this new political party. I just mentioned before the previous president Li Denghui and Chen Shui-bian, for example. And they imposed the idea of anti-sensations and new country to distinguish Taiwan from the Republic of China. And before the 1998 the Taipei mayor election, Li Denghui actually included the new Taiwanese slogan and included the mainlanders into Taiwanese category. Moreover, the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the United States in 1972 had terrified a lot of Taiwanese, as they could not help but to believe that the establishment was China's strategy to suppress the power of Taiwan. And in the past few years, under the control of Chairman Xi, he urgently wants the foreigners to acknowledge that one China policy by forcing the companies and other institutions to explicitly state that Taiwan is part of China. As we could see, even until now, many political leaders and authorities in Taiwan still express that desire of Taiwan independence and upheld such ideology, which this in turn had formed a resilient national identity among the Taiwanese citizens. So the last factor I want to talk about is the historical events, and we included some of the important events that we consider as impactful at constructing the national identity of the Taiwanese. These events are the Qingdao incident, missile crisis, the 2004 presidential election shooting, and the 228 incident, and all of them aggregated Taiwanese resentment against mainland China. The way that PRC handled this instance has reflected the drawbacks of Chinese central government, particularly their lack of transparency. Thus, Taiwanese gradually lost their confidence and faith in Chinese central government because they did not get the ideal result and feedback they wanted. Overall, our presentations examine the reasons for the decline of Chinese identity in Taiwan from four main perspectives, which are economic, school curriculum, political regime, and historical events. Our final conclusion is that the state should provide strong enforcement during elections of Taiwan and provide support for candidates who follow the fundamental principle of one country, two systems accordingly.
Okay, let's go to the third question. Such a really interesting question. Is there Chinese civilization or civilization with Chinese characteristics? Before answering this question, I think we should understand some concepts. What is the civilization state? And does the People's Republic of China represent China? For the civilization state, this word was coined in 1990s, just 30 years, and first coined is as a way to describe China. Civilization state is a country with a unique civilization, such as Russia and India, and often places these countries on a country's historical community and cultural unity across a large geographic region. If we say People's Republic of China does not represent China, which is we consider China as a geographic region located in East Asia. From the name China was first seen in Western Zhou dynasty. It has more than 2,000 years. So, People's Republic of China is just a part of China. This China has gone through many dynasties. Some of them also have characteristics of civilization states, such as Yuan dynasty, which is dominated by Mongolians, and Qin dynasty, and which is dominated by Manchus. In today's world, 75% of Singaporeans are Han people, and a quarter of Malaysia's population is also made up by Han people. These countries are sovereign states, but they also have typical Chinese cultural characteristics. Moreover, we can also find some Chinese cultural characteristics, such as cultural value, cultural forms in other Asian countries, such as Korean. Koreans celebrate Chinese New Year like Chinese people. In conclusion, we will think there is a civilization with Chinese characteristics. The civilization with Chinese characteristics has a long history, and the evolution of cultural value and cultural forms is the result of longer-term mutual exchange, reference, and integration of various Chinese characteristics, ancient cultures, and different nationalities. In the long river of history, the population has been constantly migration. The Hanzu people, who contribute the majority of the Chinese population, have moved to other regions in Asia and brought their cultural characteristics to these regions, which can also explain why other Asian countries have similar Chinese cultural characteristics. If we say People's Republic of China represents China, that means we only consider the history of the China founding in 1949. There are 56 ethnic groups in China, and majority of them are Han people. The rest are 55 minorities. Lots of minorities have their own culture, language, and script. However, under the current policy, China is using unified official language and script, Mandarin and simplified Chinese, which has led to some criticism by liberalists who believe they are inherently monopolized by minorities like Han people. But we can also find China implements the regional ethnic autonomy system. We are seeking common ground while sharing difference. Therefore, I think if People's Republic of China represents China, there is a Chinese civilization.